So today we're going to be talking about the hiring spectrum and basically the different levels of talent that you can get from every position that you're looking to hire for. Everything from entry-level sales positions, and we'll go through positions outside of just sales, but everything from entry-level sales positions to ultimately hiring out a CEO so that you can replace yourself as the business owner. When you look back onto companies like tech, eventually your business should evolve into a business of businesses. Mike talks a lot about growing your team to a point where it's a team of teams, but eventually you'll grow your business to a business of businesses, right? So once you get to that point, you will want to replace yourself as the core operator and build out a CEO to run your offer as well. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Obviously, Shannon and I we oversee the recruitment team for sales positions over at coachingsales.com. Can you see everything?
Yes.
Cool. So typically when people get started with us, Ryan, they will come in with the intent of hiring salespeople. And as a business owner, you typically have this vision of this ideal salesperson that'll probably get started with you, right? Maybe you've watched Wall Street, maybe you've watched Boiler Room, maybe you've watched Wall Street, and you think you're going to get Michael Douglas. This is the salesperson that you think you're going to get. The guy with the cool suit and the tongue of a god, and everyone that he talks to wants to buy something, and they don't hang up the phone until they're buying something, right? And in a perfect world, sure, that's what every candidate would look like. But what ends up actually happening, Mike and I joke about this all the time, right? You end up onboarding that sort of one weird sales and you don't know how it converts deals. You're like, man, like this guy is a weirdo. And having a background in timeshare, both Mike and I always talk about, man, how is there that one weird guy where they're a white guy, but they're also think that they're like a Native American and they're wearing all this jewelry and still every single day they're closing deals. It's like, where in the world is that? But sure as shit, one weird guy who's always closing deals. And that's why at Coaching Sales, we work so hard on basing our decisions off of data-driven decisions. You want to onboard at least 3 sales reps because you don't know if your top producer is going to end up being the Jordan Belfort or being this weird guy on the screen. You never know who's going to end up being the top producer. Onboard 3 to find out who your number 1's going to be, okay? Which brings us into the hiring spectrum and the talent spectrum. You guys see that? So from the sales recruitment side, there's really 3 different tiers that we recruit for between Shannon and myself. There's entry-level roles, which are SDRs. We've talked about this a little bit, Ryan. There's mid-level talent, who we just onboarded for your closers, and then there ends up being your exec, your Elon Musk. The point that I'm trying to show with this graph here is that the further you go entry level, the more volume that you want to hire. So what we found is that in entry-level sales positions and SDR, the churn is really 12%. The retention is 12%. 1 out of 8 people will end up sticking with you long-term. And what we can do long-term is past 30 days. So our goal when we introduce setters, they're not going to be that Jordan Belfort type kid. They're usually someone who's very fresh to the phones. Maybe they're young. Yesterday we introduced one who was 17, just finishing up high school. They don't have any experience in sales, but they're looking to earn their start. But they are also lower money motivation, right? If they can sustain a job where they're making $3 to $5 grand a month, they'll be happy, especially if the autonomy to work from anywhere in the world and the autonomy where the boss isn't micromanaging them. You can really retain that person. Our goal when we hire setters is to hire 4 at a time. Because we know that retention is 12% across the board, when we hire 4 at a time, 3 in the first week or 2 will either quit or get fired because they're just not active whatsoever. Like you'll hire them and then you'll never hear from them again. So as soon as they fall off, we replicate the process again. And we bring on a second round of 4 people, right? Now you should have a total of, and in that 8, you want to find one that sticks with you past 30 days. If you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to jump in with us. Cool. From there, closers, this is really our entry level to start working together. This is our entry point where it's like, hey, we recruit 7-figure producers, providing people with a strong background in sales to come on. Like we talked about before, the retention on a closer is 33% of people that have made it through our 3-tiered interview process. So I have clients who come to me and they'll say, well, I'm bringing in my own closers as well. I know that you're sending me over 4, but I'm bringing in my own. So is retention still going to be the same? And the answer is no, because I don't know how these people were screened. When I'm talking about a 33% retention, I'm talking about a 33% retention from our qualifications. Does that make sense? For all I know, if you're bringing in someone from off the street, you went to the guy at McDonald's and said, hey, do you want to join my sales team? He's like, sure. This job at McDonald's is shitty. Let's get started. I don't know. I don't know how it works. So when I'm talking about 33% retention, it's coming using the process that we put into place. Okay. Now, the goal with this, because retention is higher, it's not onboard as many. This is a more skilled position, right? You have guys who've been in the space, usually working in sales for 2, 3, 5. When I got started in the space, I was working in sales for 7 years at the time. We're looking for that senior level talent, or not senior, but mid-level talent to come in and replace you off the phones. This is a more high-risk position. With an entry-level role with an SDR, there's not much risk. Hey, cold call this list, cold call a triage list. No risk to the business versus a closer, you can be risking $150, $200, $300 a call depending on how expensive your calls are, right? From there, once you start moving over towards the exec level and the CEO level, this is when you start getting more selective with who you're. When Tesla was hiring Elon Musk, they weren't saying, hey, let's go and hire 3 different CEOs, put them on trial and see who does the best. They're going off a very specific background and then making them an offer, usually with certain targets, to come in and achieve those targets and get paid off those targets. For example, Elon Musk, if you look at his salary, he actually pays himself minimum wage from Tesla, which is interesting. But the way he's compensated is he's given different stock options at different levels of the business, usually revenue targets. What's really interesting, if you go deep into that study, into his comp plan, they actually give him 8 different levels that they expected were impossible to achieve, and he achieved them in his first 12 months, which is pretty dope. That's why he's the wealthiest man in the world, or number 3, I think, on the board right now. What we find, though, and this is the big point of the training that I really want to get across, is to know what role you're hiring for within the hiring spec. We've had clients in the past where we're hiring closers, and then when we bring on closers, they expect to bring on an executive. And that's a term that I call outkicking your coverage. With a client, one client in particular, I'll just use an example. We had a client who said, I've talked to these sales guys. Yes, they have a background in sales. Yes, they're probably talented, but I've also hired sales guys with $150,000 base salary and a commission structure on top. And these guys don't mirror that at all. And from recruitment side, we were like, no shit, because on a sole commission basis, if we were targeting guys with $150,000 salary plus commission, we'd be targeting an entirely different talent, right? If you outkick your coverage and you start looking for the executive to come in, you start looking for the Jordan Belfort to come in and be your mid-level producer, that's when your organization starts to run into all sorts of issues. You actually have a really good example of this, right? Where the 2 family members, the father and the son, the father was the owner of his insurance business, and then he came in and started trying to dictate the process a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I was like, yeah, you're exactly right. He was trying to be my role. And it was just like, it's not how we're going to do things. You're being a pain in the ass and we're 5 minutes in. I just want you to close deals and that's it.
Which happens all the time. So I appreciated how fast you were to be like, hey, let's just let this guy go from the batch and we'll get rocking and rolling with the other 2.
Yeah.
The name of the game is really decisiveness. What separates a business owner from having success with their sales force versus what separates a business owner from not having success is decisiveness versus lack or indecisiveness. Sometimes businesses will get hung up on that. And they're like, oh, I really, really wanted that guy. Oh, man, let's just keep moving forward. Let's just keep the ball rolling. We outkick the coverage with the one candidate. He's asking for weird things. He's asking to demand a look at the marketing material, right? He wants to redirect marketing material. He wants a salary. He wants equity in the business. All of these things are things that we have seen, right? Where if you kick your coverage, that's a clear sign to let someone go. Now, more often than not, and this is probably the case, is that mid-level producer is recognizing himself as an executive, but he falls more in line with the mid-level producer from a talent skill. So otherwise, hell, why would he not be already doing this on his own?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think I can't really blame them from his point of view. Like, why not try for all that stuff? Well, that's not, that's like you said, that's not where you fall in on this spectrum. Unfortunately, This is your role. Take it or leave it.
Yep, 100%. And then the opposite side happens as well. where we talked about outkicking your coverage, but you can underkick your coverage as well. If you get an entry-level salesperson who's really just starting and they're trying to work that mid-level, they're not going to have the experience necessary to close deals in this scenario where someone goes off script. You're not going to know how to manage that prospect without the experience of previously managing that prospect, right? Now, that being said, sure, everyone has to grow at some point. So do SDRs ever grow into closers? 100%. Absolutely. Do closers ever grow into CEOs? Absolutely. 100%. I've heard a lot of people talk about Elon Musk and say he's nothing more than the most talented salesperson in the world. But it happens. But the goal isn't to underkick your coverage, if that makes sense. If you what happens, like we just talked about, Ryan, is a lot of times the mid-level producer can think that they want to be a CEO, and then just their salesmanship alone is not enough to scale a business, and they can implode a business because they've been promoted too quickly. They can a mid-level producer could grow into a DOS role, director of sales, and they can implode a sales team because they're underexperienced, which happens all the time, which is oftentimes a good learning moment for the business owner to know, hey, let's try a different DOS in this case, right? Good news is, as long as you have a strong operating business, no matter what mistake you run into, whether it's overkicking your coverage or underkicking your coverage, you can just fall right back in line with the sales process and get it fixed in a matter of 30 days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Do you guys hire for all of this spectrum? Is that what you're saying too?
We do. So something that's really cool, Shannon, when we brought her onto the team, she had a really strong background in headhunting. And that was very attractive for us to bring her on because while I had experience building out sales and recruiting sales team members, I did not have a background in headhunting. And then when I found out what Shannon was doing, I was like, oh my gosh, please come over and work with us. And her experience was able to scale out our recruitment team so well because of that diversity in what she was recruiting.
Yeah. So like he said, I come from like a headhunting background. So the people that are going to be more to your right is going to involve a lot more time finding these folks. It's going to be more prospecting, outbound, cold messages, cold calling, tons of follow-up. You might be chasing somebody for 3-6 months, whereas to the left is going to be more candidates that are coming from like our organic marketing. I'm always posting on my story, inbound leads, all these folks more from like the traffic and funnels and that sort of thing coming from the accelerator. They've probably taken some sort of course. So yeah, I started in the construction recruiting industry like 3 or 4 years ago. I was doing a ton of like high level executives, VPs of construction, but more on the headhunting side, it's going to take 3, 9, 12 months. And you might not exactly find the person that you're looking for still, but there's a huge skill set for these people more towards the right. So we get a lot of clients that want us to hire to the right, but really they need somebody to the left. But more on the headhunting side, we can definitely do that, but we might charge a little more. From a headhunting perspective, I usually charge like 20-25% of salary, which is a little hard to calculate for a 1099 person because you don't know how much they're going to make. But the more you go to the right, it will become a little more of a fee. And those people are also going to go through multiple interviews. They'll probably have one with an HR director. They might have to talk to like the operations manager or VPs. They'll also get screened for background checks. They'll require a drug test, whereas a commission-based sales rep working as a 1099 won't be as refined.
Yeah.
A really good example of that, Ryan, right now, we're actually for another client, we're hiring for a PR specialist.
Cool.
That order has been open with us since December, actually.
Yeah, I imagine it's not, you got to find a company and person fit, and it's just, yeah, there's a lot more to it than somebody that close or somebody that generate meetings.
What happens, and the reason why the model's so attractive, is when we bring on closers to an organization and they start producing business right away, the bottleneck of the business moves.
Yeah, the rest of the business needs to grow and everything else needs to fall into place or else it's going to blow up.
Exactly. So if we can provide that to you guys as well, it's just, it's a complimentary service, which is.
And then as they also get more towards the right, you have to sell them harder on the opportunity in the interview process because they have all these different options. And with the market being so volatile with COVID, people don't want to leave their 9-to-5 jobs with their W-2 and their benefits and all the extra perks to move into a commission-based only role. So you really have to sell them on the opportunity in the interview process.
The further right you go, the more demand changes for that role. right? Where I'll use that PR position as an example. She's actually hiring her as a W-2 with benefits and life insurance, health insurance, 401k match, everything. And it makes sense for the role that she's hiring for it to be in-house, et cetera, for her to be able to do that. Cool.
Yeah, I like to use the example Mike used the other day, whereas when he started working at the hotels, he was like the bellman and he basically had to beg people for the job. So he was more in that entry level role. Whereas if they were hiring a GM, that would be more on the executive side where the hotel would need to sell the GM on why he should come work for them. So that was a neat example Mike used the other day.
Stephanie, do you have anything?
We have, I actually, just as I was coming on, I got a message from the 17-year-old. So she has now joined our private group. So basically what I've been having them do is friend us on Facebook, start conversations, because that's how our business works anyway. So start them on business conversations or conversations between us. And then I sent them to the group to look around. And then the first two people that we're looking at, I sent them homework last night through our curriculum. They sent their responses to the curriculum at first glance. And so they were already really excited about it. I'm going to look at this, the newer one, and see how things go and have a little bit more of a conversation with her, but it's moving in the right direction. So we're excited. I think the first actual meeting with our new setters will be tomorrow. So we're gonna have to watch some trainings on that.
Awesome. And what's really cool about that, Stephanie, I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but when we are onboarding SDRs, so the further to the left, right? The biggest thing that Nav and Bree and our client success team will look for are entry-level talent. Rather than looking for talent, they're looking for, just like you gave them homework. Are they opting in? Are they doing what you're asking them to do? Are they going to plug in with the business? Are they trying to commit to this? Are they just like the one candidate going slow, and as they react slower, that's usually a sign to let go of them quicker.
Yeah, that's what we're noticing. Even our current setters right now, the ones that we currently have, that's the problem, is that there's no initiative to do some reach outs or things on their own. They're waiting. We need people that are going to just hey, let me reach out. What can I do to reach out? That's what we're looking for. So I'm excited with the first two that we're starting.
Yep. Awesome.
You definitely want somebody that's hungry, because even in our interview process, especially for the SDR roles, we're almost talking them out of it. And the more they're trying to beg us for the job, those are the people we push through. But if they're if they don't want to be cold calling or doing 100 messages a day, we just eliminate them from our candidate pool.
That is the interview process for an SDR. We try to talk them out of it, and the ones who push through, it's a lot of sales candidates get upset because they're like, man, Shannon told me I can't do this. She said I'm a pathetic loser. And that's what we're trying to do, though. We're trying to see who has the aggressiveness to push. If you guys have any questions on this, please feel free to reach out to me and Shannon, as always.
Can I drop one for you guys real quick? Ryan, I hope you don't mind, dude. I'm gonna pick on my man out there in Massachusetts real quick, my man Ryan. So for someone that's just starting out with a new team, they're ramping up, they're gonna start in the phones. What are some things from your guys' awesome experience that you could give them insight on that's gonna come up, but it's normal to go through the storm, quote unquote, if that makes sense?
What's nice now is we actually just went over this. We used Ryan as an example a lot. We talked about picking your coverage with a candidate. Someone who was a business owner, but they were starting to apply for a mid-level position because he wants to take a step back in his business. Then as soon as he came on board, he started trying to play that authoritative role and was just being, for lack of better words, dick. Start saying, hey, let me look at your marketing. Let me adjust the comp plan. Pay me a salary. Pay me this. Let's just let that guy go. So we actually use that when we were going through the hiring spectrum, and Ryan's right on point, playing it the way he's playing it. Yeah, of course. And then same thing with Stephanie. She's playing it right on point. She recognized who was not interacting as fast. Of course, there was no projecting the, hey, I'm taking the cleanse from the internet. But that's SDR.
Awesome. I was like, really? Why would you even apply that's on Facebook if you're having a spiritual cleanse from ridiculous?
I'm still bummed about her because I think she would have been a really good fit. Turn your Facebook back on. Come on.
Facebook, you have to see this through. Okay, whatever.
And then the other day we had this really aggressive sales rep that didn't want to go through any of the onboarding or the training, and our team a really tough time. time. And she said that as a strong sales rep, she can fly alone, like her own little eagle that she is, and she doesn't want to be working as a team. So that's just a virus in its own self that you don't want in your team either. The business owner that we were working with just told us to let her go right off the bat. It wasn't going to be a good fit regardless.
It's a really interesting scenario, guys. When we look at people at salespeople who were business owners who either sold their business or had an exit from their business, from our side, well, the way we qualify them is we say, hey, how do we know you're not going to go and start your own business again, right? Because we don't want you guys back up looking for your next candidate again in the next 60 days. And if they say, oh, I'm looking to do this for a short period of time and gain some capital before I go and start my next venture, that's an easy way to disqualify them from the recruitment side. But a lot of times the opposite happens too. A lot of times we find more seasoned sales pros who are like, hey, I sold my business. I'm ready to call it a wrap. I get bored of sitting on the beach and drinking margaritas. So if I can take a mid-level position and have a good relationship with the business owner, I'd be excited for that too. So we get excited when we hear that, but that's another good example, Shannon, of someone who just sold they were back on the market. And then when they went into the mid-level role, she was like, hey, any sales training? I'm not doing any team interactiveness. She said, let the eagle fly alone. So we said, all right, you are fired. The eagle's now alone.
Yeah, she said she wasn't going to do any sales huddle or team huddles. And she's written more sales training than anybody on her team has ever done, or something crazy. So it's like a ego, and she was more on that right side when she was applying for like more of a mid-level.
That lady is less ridiculous than the Facebook thing I just heard. That's like a complete joke.
Oh gosh. Yeah, there were a couple emails back and forth with multiple team members, and she was like, this is ridiculous. Your millennial technology too much handle. And
Right, 1,100 salespeople that we onboarded last year. We always, Alvin and I especially, we talk about how rare it is that we hear something new. That one was new. The girl who said, hey, I'm taking a cleanse from Facebook and the internet. We were like, wait, how do we?
Which was the funny thing. So I found her on Facebook, and then she must have shut her Facebook off literally the next day.
She's off to a monastery in Nepal. I got one more for you guys. I'm actually really curious about your insight on this. I really am. How much weight would you give qualitative metrics in relation to quantitative when it comes to a new team starting with one of our partners?
It depends on how far on the spectrum we're going. Hang tight. I stopped sharing my screen. That's right. You guys all know what the spectrum is. But it depends completely on the role that we're hiring for. If you're looking for that closing role, quite a bit, which is why we quantify it from $1 million perspective. $1 million, and that's going to be a year at the least in sales. It's going to be usually around 2 years, depending on what they were selling. But it gives us a foundation to know that they have the chops to make it in sales. For the entry level, more qualitative, much more qualitative.
Yeah, you pretty much just want to hire anybody that applies and just have them battle.
Because they have the chops to push through. But when you're hiring the CEO of Tesla, it needs to be a very quantitative experience. What businesses have you grown in the past? What gives you the right to take over my business and now be the forefront of my business?
Sounds like it's a more results-focused conversation.
Much more result-focused.
Yeah.
Because the business has a lot more risk.
Appreciate you, man. I'm gonna throw one of these for that one, okay? Where is it? Where's it at?
Jeez.
That was awesome. I'm in love with this new Zoom update right now. There's so many awesome emojis right now. Anyway, I'm gonna mute myself. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Me too.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. You guys have anything else? Ryan, Stephanie, you guys good? Thank you guys so much for jumping on.
Yeah, we'll do these meetings every Tuesday, and I'm not sure if you guys have the calendar link. There's other ones during the week as well, so feel free to hop on, watch them live or on the replay. We've got a couple different team members hosting each one, so it's great to have you guys, and we appreciate you hopping on with us.
And as always, if there's anything that you guys want us to cover on the recruitment side of it in one of these trainings, please feel free to reach out to us. We don't know what you guys want to hear until you ask, so let us know. Cool?